I just thought we'd start
Hello.
with some music. I like to play music and all the meetings and all the conversations I have with Vishal.
Beautiful. It's a great way to start anything with some music.
So welcome to Stillness and Chaos. I've got Vishal Talreja, an amazing person, human being. I'll tell you more about him. I've got Poe, my buddy, because it's nice to squish him and makes this conversation easier. And sometimes it's easier to, it's good to kind of have the goofy side at a serious conversation about mental health, which we'll talk about. For those who don't know me, I'm Daniel. I'm the founder of Because You. I've I truly believe that all of us are wise, creative, joyful human beings. And sometimes a mental health issue, grief, emotional distress kind of clouds who we are as human beings. So it's my life's purpose to, firstly work on myself to see my beauty as a human being, but also support others on this journey. So, stillness and chaos is one of the ways that I'm doing that. I speak to amazing people like Vishal every couple of weeks. We talk about many things, but the intention really is to see how inner leadership and well-being are connected. One is connected to the other, and when you do it in a conscious way, it actually leads to a lot of joy and creativity and wisdom. So, Vishal, thank you for joining. Um, what I'll maybe I'll just start with a quick intro, and then we'll go into it. So Vishal, there's so much to say about you, but I'll try and make it brief. So in
Don't say anything.
1999, 25 years ago. Oh my God, you're so old. Um, you co-founded Dream a Dream, an organization that is really obsessed with how young children and young people, children and young people from vulnerable communities can thrive. Doing this through life skills, creative, and in lots of creative ways. So far, about 2 million kids who've been through the program, who've been impacted, and just that the concept of using education for thriving, I think is incredible. Incredible organization. I had the pleasure of working with you. An author of When We Thrive, the World Thrives. So you love to write, clearly. I loved your poetry. You've written a book called My Soul Stirring, which is very connected to your mental health journey, which we'll go into. And recently, you've started the Cocoon Initiative, which is for the social sector, for people who are who just need to take some time, take a sabbatical to really refresh and get energized. So you've done lots of things, and I think a lot of people respect you. I have heard lots of good things about you, and I know most of them are right. You're the voice of kind of global education and what it needs to look like. You represent India in many forums. So all that is the professional stuff, but like we have recently met, and I think I've really enjoyed having conversations with you, just having um, kind of being you holding space and being vulnerable with your journey, and kind of saying I'm not sure, I'm still on this journey, I don't know what to do, which is great, and because it's so complex, and just being willing to do this on a live conversation. So thank you, Vishal, for being you, and welcome to Stillness and Chaos.
Thank you, Daniel. Yes. I'm nervous and excited. Yeah, so let's get on with it.
Let's get on with it. Okay. So clearly you are a complex, multi-layered, interesting human being, right? And there's so much that shapes us as human beings. I just love to maybe kick off by asking you who or what has shaped you. Obviously, many things, but maybe one or two really pivotal moments.
Yeah. Uh, Yeah, it's such a complex question to ask because what do you really talk about? You talk about childhood, you talk about adolescence, you talk about as an adult. Uh, I think one thing that shaped me, I don't know if in a good way or not so good way, more I would think in a not so good way, was the education that I got access to. Uh, I was an introvert, quiet kid, and went to a convent school. Uh, and because I was introvert and quiet, I was good in academics, and more importantly, I was compliant. So all the teachers loved me because I would listen, I would respect. Uh, I was helpful and kind. If a teacher asked me to do something, I would do it. I would do it well. If a student was struggling, and if the teacher said, "Can you take time out of your lunch break and teach them a bit," I would do that. Uh, so I didn't really have my own voice. I didn't really know who I was till I got out of the education system. Uh, I think the only inkling I had of maybe the education system, there was something wrong with it, but I didn't know what it was. For me, was yeah, I was the school captain, and the first when the teachers usually chose the school captain, and when they chose me, I was very confused because I was like, I'm a nobody, and no one knows me, and not the popular kid in school. So why did I get chosen? Uh, and As a school captain, I got punished in front of a whole school right towards the end of my 10th grade
Mm.
because a bunch of us missed one of the classes. We missed a physical education class because we were all too excited in working on our computer project. At that time, computers were all black and white, and we had to do programming language. So we were too excited and we missed the class and we got punished. And because we were punished, then all of us were made to kneel down in front of the whole school and caned. And that was the first time I was like, something is wrong. No, this is not
Mm.
how it should be. And I'm always the quiet, respectful kid. So why am I getting punished? Uh, but I lived through that, of course. In college, again, I went to a very conservative college in Bangalore. Uh, it was so conservative that they had separate staircases for men and women. And
Oh.
if a boy was caught going in the wrong staircase, he used to be slapped by the teacher. In class itself, the girls would sit in a separate row and the boys would sit in a separate row. And I was like, college is supposed to be different. It wasn't. But what saved me in college was I joined this student organization called ISEC,
Mhm.
which is an international student organization which continues to exist, promoting student exchanges globally. Uh, Again, very weird because ISEC typically selects extroverted young people, but I was introverted. But there was something about me that they probably thought was exciting. ISEC is where I really started to find my voice. So I think ISEC
Mm.
shaped me to come out of my shell, to start to learn more about myself, to become comfortable in unfamiliar situations with unfamiliar people, to make friends, some of whom have become friends for life, and told me that there's a world out there outside of Bangalore, outside of my college. Uh, and it's a big, wide world. Gave me an opportunity to go to Finland for a 3 month exchange program. So it really shaped me in very beautiful ways.
Mm. And I mean, I've heard you say voice quite a lot, right? And um, so connect that to the work, and because I think that's a big reason of why you're doing the work, perhaps. So, why do you do what you do, especially if you relate that to the voice?
Yeah. So of course the reason has also evolved. The early reason when we just started Dreametry, and it was 1999. I was 21 years old. Uh, I went to Finland on an exchange program through ISEC, uh, first one in the family to go abroad. Uh, and the first thing I noticed was just the level of respect and dignity that every human being had, whether it was a server at a restaurant or a security guard at a hotel or a janitor, uh, just a level of respect that they had. The second was that how everyone actually took pride in whatever role or job they chose to do. It was not because they couldn't do anything else or they didn't have any other choices or options. It's because they chose to do that and they took pride in it. Uh, and the third was, in spite of the choice of work that you did, uh, you had a certain quality of life because of a welfare system that Finland has. So you would have a good, comfortable house, you would have good quality food, you would have breaks and holidays, you would have access to parks and public spaces. So you led a good quality of life. And that's when I started thinking about, oh, okay, there's a whole different world, which is a world that I'm not exposed to, I didn't know about. And I started connecting to my own world. Okay, so I grew up in a certain neighborhood of Bangalore, which is the old Bangalore, which is where a lot of the old businesses continue to exist. We lived in a neighborhood which is relatively poor. We were probably one of the few houses that had concrete walls. Otherwise, most of the houses were shanties. Uh, we grew up poor, but not as poor as some of our neighbors. Uh, But in spite of that, I started remembering instances where my mother used to tell me I should not be interacting with kids from other households which were poorer than us because they used to go to government schools and they are spoiled and they might spoil me. Uh, or, the domestic help in our house who took care of us from the day I was born. I didn't know where she lived. I didn't know what her life was like. I didn't know who was in her family. She was invisible to me, uh, and it was absolutely all right. Uh, we had the system of separate plates and spoons and mugs for the domestic help, and I grew up thinking that's normal. Uh, and it was in Finland, but I knew intuitively I knew that I was not happy about it because I remember asking these questions that why can't they sit on the table and eat with us, or uh, why can't, like, during Diwali, I would touch the domestic health feet just intuitively because that's what we do in the system, and then uh, uh, people would be like, no, no, don't touch her feet. And I was like, but she's elderly. I mean, at one level, you tell me I have to respect the elderly. At another level, you're saying I shouldn't touch her feet because she's different. So I knew I had these questions, but I didn't have answers. So I grew up accepting that this is how the world is, and Finland that broke it open for me. So when I came back, I used to keep a diary, and I said I want to go back to India and change the way we look at dignity. Uh, how can every human being be treated with respect and dignity, irrespective of where they come from? Didn't know how to make it happen. Had never worked in the social sector. Had never volunteered, so I had no idea. Came back, talked to a bunch of friends. 11, 12 of us got together, and Dream a Dream was born. But zero clue about what we wanted to do. Each one of us had very different ideas, but we got together because we thought we should do something. So that's how the journey of working on dignity started, right? That every human being has a voice, has respect and dignity. It does not come from what they wear or where they live or the kind of job they do. It just comes because they're human. And how do we create a society to make that happen?
And I think it goes back to a lot of what you said in the beginning when you grew up here, the kindness, the respect, the helpfulness, the fact that you were, it like what is striking me is kind of through this journey, it feels like you kind of have had a few core values that have been constant and have been in tension with each other. Does that resonate?
I suppose so. I think I keep unpacking those values as I grow old and I become more and aware. But yeah, I think respect, dignity, kindness, empathy could be some of the core values that have shaped me.
And if I had to fast forward, so you started on this journey. I know it was, you kind of put your head down, went at it. It was a huge challenge. And, if I had to come to the other side, which is a big part of our conversation today about, our mental health journey, how it's impacted our, self-identity. And the reason like, I'm really, um, I'm passionate about this subject is because our identities are governed by so many things, right? So similar to you, I think I grew up in a family that we were liberal, and at the same time, I suddenly put on this hat of a provider. So I had this man provider identity because my dad passed away when I was a child, and it's like irrespective of how much I've worked on that, even now today it's still there, and part of that identity plus all the other parts of me, I feel I'm is ever changing, and ever I have to keep questioning that as I've been going on this mental health journey, which has been almost
Yeah.
10, 12 years since I was diagnosed with a serious mental health condition. So just as a backdrop to that, it'll be interesting, maybe a couple of tipping points for you on this mental health journey before we dive into it.
Sure. Well, it's also to and fro, right? It's very difficult to kind of connect it chronologically.
Yeah.
The first 10 years of building the Dream were actually a lot of fun. I loved it, absolutely loved it. Uh, I loved the whole idea of building an organization. I didn't know how to be a leader or how to be an entrepreneur. So I was doing tons of mistakes, but I was learning, I was enjoying myself. I loved spending time with kids. I loved fundraising. I loved building systems and processes. Again, ISEC played a huge part in building my own sense of confidence in being able to go out there and talk to people about our work and raise money. So I loved it. I know, in fact, I remember telling many of my friends that I'm one of the few who looks forward to a Monday morning. Uh, and because most of them, as they started building their careers, didn't like Monday mornings. I was itching to get to work and continue. I used to work 7 days a week. I was hardly at home. Uh, so that was an amazing experience. Made amazing new friends. Tons of volunteers who became friends. When I remember around 2009, I woke up on a Monday morning and a thought came in that I don't feel like going to work today. And I was shocked at that thought. I'm almost taken aback that how did that thought come in? I've never felt that way. And I got scared. So uh, I packed a few clothes. I just called office and said I'm going away for some days. I told my parents that I'm going away to a conference. I got to the Bangalore bus station, climbed onto the first bus that was going out of the station, didn't know where it was headed, sat in the bus, and after a few hours realized it's headed to Madikeri. Uh, got to Madikeri around 3 p.m. I was like, okay, I can head back now and we'll be home by 9. But something told me just stay. Called uh, called a hotel or home care of some sort. Said, I'm gonna come, stay. Got in and I slept. I was there for maybe a week, 7 to 10 days maybe, and I
Mm.
slept. I just slept. I put off my phone and I just slept. And I didn't realize how exhausted I was. That was the first time I realized physically how exhausted I was. Went on long walks, started thinking about why was this going on, realized that in my journey of trying to be a good leader and being that nice man, right, that everyone believed that I was this nice man, uh, I had become a very difficult person to work with. Uh, Perfect, micromanaging, not trusting, had to review everything, pushing for deadlines, always feeling we're not doing enough for the children, always wanting to do more, not waiting to celebrate the milestones. So the culture had actually become quite toxic of the organization, and it was beginning to eat into me. Uh, People were joining, but within a year they were leaving. People were joining because, Vishal, dream a dream, inspiring entrepreneur. I want to work with him. And they come in and they realize, as a manager, as a leader, Vishal actually is not that nice.
Mm.
Uh, and I don't feel like working with him. Uh, so I realized that if I had to come back and work at Dream Dream that it was in 2009, I wouldn't want to work here. And then I remembered that in 2002, when I moved into Dream Dream full time, I had actually made a kind of a vision document of the kind of organization I want to build. Uh, and a lot of it was based around culture of trust and kindness and empathy and dignity and respect. Right? It was based on those values, but I didn't know how to make it happen.
Mm.
And because I was scared, I didn't know how to make it happen. I started following what everyone around me advised me or thought me, which was the typical professional organization have KRAs and have systems and have reviews. Uh, so while intuitively I wanted to build a very different culture, it ended up being a very toxic culture. So
Mm.
that was the first time I realized that I had burnt out.
Mm. If I could,
And I
if I
need,
could
yeah,
pause,
yeah,
if you don't mind. So you talked about this extreme. I want to come back to that. If it's okay, I go there and tell me if you don't want to go there. But that week where you completely were, in like you were sleeping and you were having all these internal dialogues. Firstly, and this is important because this is the impact of a thing on your body, right? Were you aware of what's happening in your body? Like, what was that like? And also from a personal point of view, because you talked a lot about I guess, the work side. What were some of the dialogues that were happening on a personal point of view, where you were kind of questioning yourself or saying, I can't believe this happened.
Honestly, I don't remember the
Mm.
details of the conversation. I just remember the feeling. I remember the
Mm.
feeling of being just tired in my body. Like I get up in the morning, have breakfast, and go back to sleep. Get
Yeah.
up, have lunch, go back to sleep. Get up in the evening, go for a walk, have dinner, go back to sleep. That's what I did for a week. And no one knew where I was. I didn't tell anyone. Family didn't know, colleagues didn't know. But in my sleep, obviously, a lot of this processing was going on. So I don't remember the details of it, but I just
Mm.
remember the feeling that something is terribly wrong uh, with me, emotionally and mentally, and something is terribly wrong in the way I am developing the organization.
Mm. Yeah, and the reason I asked that is, when I first kind of had so what I deal with is very extreme, mood sort of things, right? Very high and very low, and one of the and this was after. So as I started processing it, one of the things that really was challenging for me was I started almost questioning who I was as a person. Was I
Yeah.
this outward going, like fun loving, extroverted person, or was it just my mood and my energy, right? Was I and Yeah, I think that was quite difficult, very confusing for me. um, and I'm curious if that sort of resonates, or you had a
That
similar
happened later. That
yeah.
happened later.
Yeah, exactly. It always happens later. When you're in the journey, when you're in there, like it's
Yeah,
difficult
yeah,
to
yeah.
process this.
Yeah. No, that definitely happened. A tremendous amount of self-doubt. I came back with tremendous amount of self-doubt. I went into this overdrive of that we're going to overhaul the culture of the organization, almost like redesign it ground up.
Hmm.
Uh, and it fell flat because in about 3 months, half of the team left because the culture had already become too toxic, and there's nothing I could do to control it. And I probably further added to 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 the anxiety of my colleagues with what I was going through.
Hmm.
Uh, uh, so yeah, I mean, once people started leaving, and we had a terrible fundraising year, we were almost going negative. Uh, uh, so I went into this crazy self-doubt that maybe I'm not the right person to be leading the organization. I don't know what I'm doing. Uh, uh, it's all me. I am the problem. So I went into this victim mode very, very intensely. Uh, and that took a couple of years to kind of stabilize that feeling
Mm.
of self-doubt, intense self-doubt.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what's coming for me is I think there was a period of being overcautious as well for me. Um,
Mm,
because like I became aware that, and I want to talk about the flip side of this, okay? Because like I truly believe that working intentionally on your mental health can lead to something beautiful. So I'm going to talk about this side first. So for me, I realized that I was very sensitive, and I'm very sensitive to
mm,
especially energy, whether
mm,
it's when speaking to people or places or whatever, and it had a big impact. So for me, there was a big sense of caution of whether it was the work I was doing, the people I was meeting, the places I was going. Um, that was one part. The other part was I almost felt like held back. I was like, I want to go at 100 miles an hour, but I feel, like this ecosystem or the fact that I had not let down, but I did, feel like I would let down my partner and people around me. I had to slow down a lot. Um,
mm. I think for me, yes, all of that happened. Thank you for sharing that. Uh, for me, many things also came together. Uh,
mm,
so one was the self-doubt. Uh, uh, so I'm dealing with this. I'm dealing with burnout and exhaustion, and I'm not processing that. I'm not seeking help for that. Then there's a self-doubt coming in because of my leadership, and the organization is struggling and suffering because of that. And these were people that I really liked, and they really liked me when they joined the organization, and now they didn't like me at all. And again, going back to that, like I grew up as a child, always needing to be the nice person, needing
mm,
to always be a person who keeps everyone happy. And now there's a whole bunch that is not happy with me. Uh, and 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 then around that same time, uh, I started going into understanding a bit of my own patriarchal journey.
okay.
Uh, as a child growing up, as a boy growing up in a household where it was a strongly patriarchal household. So I was asking those questions. And it was around the time Sucheta, my partner, came into my life. She joined Dream a Dream. She started uh, holding me accountable for my patriarchy. Till then, I wasn't even aware that my patriarchy was also playing a role. So then that created a whole set of self-doubt because I was fighting back that, I'm a nice man. Come on. When I was in college, most mothers would be okay sending their daughters with me because they will be like, okay, if Vishal is taking you and bringing you back, you're okay, right? I'm the
Love
nice
it.
man. Like, how
Yeah.
can you say that I'm patriarchal? Uh, so there was that journey that coincided, and then Suchita and I got married, uh, and patriarchy started playing out in our marriage in the very first year of marriage, which was an extremely difficult year. We are working together. We are married now. She's calling me out at work for my patriarchy, at home for my patriarchy. Uh, so I was like, everything that I knew about myself and which was
Mm,
my strength, which I believed I did well, was slipping away from beneath myself. And I didn't know where to hold on to. And that was when I went into depression. It was
mm,
2013, 14 is when I went. into crazy depression because everything was just opening itself up and everything was just pushing me into some kind of a dark hole and I had no way to get out of it. And I didn't even know that I was going into depression. I didn't realize it. I didn't know it. Sucheta kind of pointed it out to me a few times. But I was like, no, no, it's just a phase. Come on. I can't go into depression. I love what I'm doing. This is what I want to do for my life. I have my life's purpose clear. I have no
Hmm.
problems in life. I can't be going into depression. So all the stigma around it, everything was resisting. So that's where everything kind of just happened all at that same time of 2, 3 years.
Hmm. Ah, so much in common, Vishal. It's crazy. Um, exactly the same with my wife. Exactly the same. I was like, oh, I'm so liberal. Look at me. I have all these, I don't, I'm very, like, I feel I'm progressive and I see everything equal. And very soon I realized that I wasn't. I learned about mental load and, the fact that that was true. Patriarchy was playing out very similarly in mine. Um, and like went through that very intense depression journey. And I think, I don't know if you resonate with this, but, you know, like my wife was the rock and the anchor and, one of the reason I feel that I kind of got out of it. So that was me. But did if when you were there, did, like, again, might be difficult to go back into, but what kind of helped you maybe come out of that, or what did you, yeah, what did you, what helped you, but also what did you learn about yourself?
Mm, I didn't do anything to come out of it, honestly.
Hmm.
In the first few years, I just kept fighting it and fighting it and fighting it, fighting it at work, fighting it in personal spaces. Uh, and Sujata stood by me. Uh, she knew that this was complex, this was challenging. It was the first time I was going into questions around my identity, uh, uh, exploring my mental health challenges. Uh, Very, very difficult for me because, again, because of my patriarchy, the way I've been brought up, I'm sorted, right? There's nothing wrong with me. Uh, so I didn't seek help at all till about 2016 when my body gave in. I had a very
Hmm.
severe stomach infection and I was ill for 9 months. And the doctors couldn't diagnose it. So that was a whole thing. Uh, and when I kind of was recuperating from that absolutely debilitating illness, is for the first time it hit me that my body is actually giving me the message that now enough. If you can't now prioritize yourself and take care of yourself, I can't take care of you anymore. So it was a very, very strong message. And that's the first time, I kind of really started listening to my body. And
Hmm.
post that is when I started seeking help. Half-heartedly, I must still say, like going into therapy, going into medication. Still, in a way, somewhere at the back of my mind, thinking that it's just a phase. And once I go back to work, once I reconnect with the kids and the young people and the magic of the work, I'll be fine. Let me just get through this because everyone around me is also telling me and my body needs to get better. So I did uh, go into medication and therapy for a couple of years. It helped. I got better. We had a leadership transition in the organization. Suchita became the CEO. I took a step back. The board was very, very sensitive to it, and they said, you know what, figure out a role for yourself if you wish to continue to stay at Dream Dream. I found a new role for myself. I found the magic again
Hmm.
and started soaring again. But it was not really soaring. I was still not fully well. I was still not fully accepting that I was living with clinical depression and had been diagnosed by them that I had clinical depression. In fact, I remember in 2016, just before I fell very, very ill, uh, I was in London. I just had a donor meeting, great meeting. Had a call with Sucheta, and call was great. But in that moment, something shifted inside me. In that very moment, so there's this high, and at the very moment, I just went into this deep sense of sadness,
Hmm.
and the sadness was so overpowering that I was like, I just need to do something. I need to do something to myself. I need to maybe like harm myself.
Hmm.
Just like, and I remember standing at the subway station in London, and I was like, you know what, I can just jump off onto the tracks in this moment, and we all be over because I can't handle this sadness.
Hmm.
Uh, I'm glad I didn't do it, but
Yeah.
right, like it had reached that place, uh, but I'm still not really going into like what is it? Why could someone who's had this high of finding purpose in life, finding joy in being with children and young people, having built an amazing organization, having come out of burnout and exhaustion and rebuilt the organization, built a whole new culture, still not being able to just live with joy and purpose, like still seems to want to keep going into these dark places. And used to
Hmm.
have suicidal thoughts quite a bit, and I've had suicidal thoughts since childhood. And I just assume that everyone has suicidal thoughts. It's normal.
Hmm.
Till when I went into therapy and I realized actually no one has suicidal thoughts. Right? It's
Very
very
few people.
rare,
Yeah.
very, very few people. Right? And I just
Hmm.
assume that it must be normal. Like, I mean, how can you not have suicidal thoughts when things are going
Hmm.
haywire in the world? Right? And I remember when the Delhi rape case happened in
Hmm.
2012. I consumed every single piece of information, everything that was coming in. And it took me to a really, really dark place. Uh,
Hmm.
uh, so I knew that I was inviting a lot of the negative into my life, almost in many cases enjoying being depressed.
Hmm.
And if you like, you've read some of my poetry. If you read a lot of the poetry, it comes from that space of depression, comes from that dark place.
Hmm.
And I used to proudly say that I have to be depressed to write poetry.
Hmm.
Otherwise, it doesn't happen, right? I can't write happy poetry, right? So I'd almost accepted that very weirdly as uh, as one more of my cool things as an
One
identity.
more filter. Yeah. 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 Firstly, thank you so much for sharing all of that very openly. Um, can't even imagine how growing up with all those thoughts were, and the like dealing with everything, and however you were doing that with these thoughts, and just talking about it, I think is really powerful, especially for so if there's anyone here, it'd be lovely if you we can put up comments. So for example, I can just you can we can see your comments, your questions. um, yeah, I'm just holding all of that, Vishal. Like, I'm holding the emotion. I'm holding where you're coming from, and your book, by the way, I just bought it. Your book of poems, and like I think your emotion, like that's what really stood out for me. And like I told you, I'm a very sensitive person, and actually I've embraced that. Um, so I want to read this out, and I actually kept out the Nirbhaya one. It says, "We failed you, we failed that child. Living inside each of them, we failed as humans. I make a promise, not of justice, of commitment. Commit I to tirelessly bring love into the life of every child like the six. In that, Jyoti Singh, I may find my forgiveness." When you hear that, like, just share what you're feeling right now.
Yeah, still, I think it's still very raw because we continue to see it. happen. Yeah, I mean, in every child's life, there's a moment uh, when they give up on the world,
Hmm.
uh, and it's important for us as a society to get to them before they hit that point. And I've seen that with some of the kids that I personally worked with in the early years. I've seen who they can become when they give up on the world. And, and for me, if you want to create a safe world for everyone, we have to get to that child at that moment, whether it's at the age of 1 or 2 or 15 or 18, whenever it is, before they kind of tell themselves, okay, this world doesn't belong to me and I've got to fight it now. How could we get to them before that? And we're still failing, all of us.
Hmm. Yeah. Thank you, Maria. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your. Okay, so one of the ways, Vishal, that again, the emotion. I come back to art as a way to process emotion, right? And I know you do this. I don't know if that was the intention, but it's clear how I don't know how you felt after writing this. Um, but one of the ways I deal with or release my emotions, which I've realized is sometimes I don't need to talk about it. Sometimes I can just sing. So I'd love to sing a song for you. Is that okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and it's a song that I used to sing quite a lot when I was feeling down. So it has a little bit of connection to our conversation, but also I just want to release some of the emotion I'm feeling.
We can't hear you, Daniel. Okay, can I say something? Okay, yes, I can't hear you. Your voice is gone.
I played it and you didn't hear me.
No, but I saw your expressions and emotions, and I think probably we needed that silence, and you needed the music, and we needed the silence.
I love it. The universe works in mysterious ways, but it always
It
plays out.
does.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So you needed the silence, and I needed the music. Okay, that's
Yeah.
good.
I don't know what the audience or whoever's listening to us needed, but I think
They were
your
wondering
your
what the
your
hell is
face had a
going
lot
on.
of emotions. Yeah.
Yeah. They're wondering what the hell is going on. Love it. So let's talk about the other side, right?
Yeah.
So we've got that intensity of the journey. All of us who've gone through this. Some of us have seen it, our friends, our family, but some of us have gone through this. There's a lot of challenges. There's so much, and on the other side, there's so much. Like I truly believe that there's so much that can change in a good way if you do it well, right? And I'll share a couple of examples, and then maybe if something comes to mind for you. So the first one for me is like I completely embraced this sensitive soul of mine. I kind of I just am who I am. I cry when I need to cry. It's one of the reasons I do the work in the mental health space, because I feel the empath in me is nourished, and it's kind of that gives me strength. The other one, if I from just a work point of view, like, because I have this energies and the thing, like, I'm like, sometimes when I'm creative, I'm really creative and the entrepreneurial, just like, the entrepreneur really kicks in me, and I've realized that I need that. And at the same time, I need to do lots of things so that I can kind of do that in a good way, right? So those are two things that I've learned and I have embraced, and it's actually led to a really rich life for me.
Beautiful, beautiful. Ah, I think I'm still in the journey. Uh, One thing I've embraced is uh, that I need to heal. Uh,
Mm.
uh, so the last, I would say, 4 years have been the most intentional I have been about my healing journey, whether it's physical, medical needs, mental and emotional needs, medications, therapy, somatic therapy, physiotherapy, cutting down on work. I haven't traveled in 2.5 years, uh, and people are shocked by that because pre-COVID, I was traveling 20 days a month. I was hardly at home.
Mm.
Um, right. So a lot of it, one has been just saying, okay, I need to settle down. I need to have roots. I need to have familiarity, and I need to heal. Uh, in addition to clinical depression, a couple of years back, I was also diagnosed with high anxiety,
Mm.
and that continues to exist. And being patient with my journey, being patient with my healing
Mm.
journey, prioritizing it, but also knowing that it will take time. It's not something that can happen in 2 3 months. In fact, my therapist every session reminds me that this it's a 2 year target. So
Yeah.
yeah, uh, just kind of giving me that sense of that it will need that level of investment.
Mm.
Uh, so I think that's one thing I've embraced, that healing is going to be a journey. It's a process, and in this process of healing, what am I shedding?
Mm.
What are the identities I am now working to let go of? So the identity of a provider, as a man in the house, having my partner take care of me, being able to tell my partner that I need help, being able to set boundaries with people who care and love for me, friends, colleagues, and say, I'm not feeling up to it today. I don't want to meet you. Or I'm with a friend and I'm like, you know what, I'm, I think the anxiety is rising, and can you please just take me home? Right. So being able to normalize that I need help, and using people around me as my support system,
Mm.
that I don't have to do this journey alone, that there are people around me who love me, who care for me, and will be there to take care of me and support me in this journey, just like I would be there for them. Uh, the other side of it is also then that uh, going into my identity as, again, a heterosexual, upper caste, upper class man, and how some of these identities have not worked for my mental well-being.
Mm.
Actually, now created a lot of expectations of this identity. Uh, what are the voices I make invisible in my work because I have this upper caste, upper class, heterosexual man? Uh, how is the organization shaped because of this identity? And in the shaping of this organization, then what is missed out? Uh, Again, then in a lot of my international work that I did pre-COVID intensely, You mentioned that I did do a lot of global education work, and I became a very important voice in many of these global education forums. Uh, and I thought that I was reaching a place where I was able to shift some of the narratives around education for every child, especially children coming from adversity. But then realizing through COVID, as I was living through COVID, and kind of reflecting on the journey, that in that space, I was the brown man
Hmm.
from a developing country or a third world country. And I had become the token of that brown identity. So I got a seat on the table, not because I had thought leadership. It was because I was bringing a brown man perspective, right? And I didn't realize it when I was doing that work. But in COVID, when I took a step back and I was going through this healing process, that identity also hit me. That one of the reasons of again my depression was that constantly fighting this battle and losing, fighting this battle of bringing a certain context, perspective, lens to global education dialogue, but losing that battle because I was the only brown person in that. Right. So there are identities of power which I've had to now reconcile and learn to let go, which I still am. And then there
Hmm.
were identities which were vulnerable identities, which again I didn't identify. Uh, so there's a shedding away of some identities that's going on right
Hmm.
now. And in the shedding of those identities, and the struggle right now is taking accountability for the fact that my sisters had a very different childhood than I did, and I had no clue about the childhood that they had. Taking accountability to the fact that the way Dreamer Dreams was built, that certain identities were made invisible, whether it was based on gender or sexual orientation or caste or class,
Hmm.
because of who I was, because of these identities that I carried, and I have to take accountability for that. And I still struggle to take that accountability.
Hmm.
Right? So what has happened is through my healing process, I've built resilience, and I'm building more resilience to take accountability for some of this, and building resilience to let go of some of these. Again, the identity of being this, like, one of the youngest Ashoka Fellows in Asia. Then I got the Ashoka Fellowship, the awards that I got, the accolades that I've got, the fellowships that I've got. In the early years, I was the poster boy of the social sector at that time. 21-year-old starting an organization, sacrificing the corporate career. I
Hmm.
embraced all of that, right? And it made me feel like a hero. And I've grown up, seeing Bollywood movies where there is this angry young man who's the hero and who's changing the world, right? And I kind of embraced that identity. So when I got those accolades and recognitions, I was the hero, and I wanted to be the hero. But now it's about, like, stepping away from that. It's about creating space for emergence of other voices and other identities to come in. And I struggle with it. I keep going back to the old identities because it's so solid, right? I mean, it's so ingrained in you,
Yeah.
the patriarchal identities of an Indian man. But this healing is helping me do that. This healing is helping me do that. And I feel like now when I kind of talk, even like at these global education forums online, many times I'm like, I don't have anything to say. Like, if
Hmm.
people ask me about education, I'm like, I don't have anything to say because that's the old identity. Like, this come from an
Hmm.
old narrative, and I don't know what my new narrative is yet. I don't know what my new identity is yet. So I'm in this in between space where I'm expected to be a leader, but I don't know what kind of leader I want to be.
And could I ask you? I mean, it's a reflection and a question. This in between space, it's a very messy space, right? It's because you don't know because you're shedding some of these identities. You want to take accountability for all the stuff that you perhaps have missed and was invisible. At the same time, I'm very conscious of your perfectionism streak and that thing, and you taking on responsibility, and the fact that in the past it's had an impact on your mental health, and now does taking so much accountability, will that impact your mental health? So I'm a little worried for you there, but you see what I mean? So I'm just joining some of those dots. So that holding of that middle, like, does that feel light right now? Does it feel heavy? Like, how are you holding that? Because I think that's quite important.
Oh, it feels heavy. It feels very heavy. Uh, Actually, wait, no. But it feels heavy to take accountability, right? It like yes, all men, including me, right? I am responsible for the way our society is today. Uh, That's very tough to say it. It's extremely tough to say that. But even more tough to live it. I might still say it because I'm a nice man. But so difficult to live it. Like it's so easy for me to keep going back into my old patriarchal life. Like even now, when I go to meet my mom, it's very easy for me to just sit on the sofa, put on the television,
Yeah.
and expect that my mom is going to bring me food and she's going to take my
Yeah,
plate away, right? It's very easy to slip into that. Right? So I have to be constantly aware. Or you're in a team meeting and you make a joke which is inappropriate, right? Which was very normal for you to do in the past, but now you have to be very aware that it's not right, it's inappropriate, and you have to take immediate accountability for that. So that's the tough part, but I think it's tough when you start that journey. But once you're on that journey of shedding that skin, it becomes easier. It's like you're practicing a new muscle, right? So when you start now, for example, I'm very aware of uh, like if a conference panel has all men, like I mean, you can't let go of that.
yeah,
You have to call it out.
yeah.
So I've certain changes I've made. So I don't go into any conferences where it's majority heterosexual cisgender men. I don't sit on panels. I kind of make that upfront that I'm not going to join the panel if this is how it's going to be. Uh, right. So you start bringing in some changes. Initially, they're very difficult, but then as you start building this muscle, practicing this muscle, it gets easier, and that's joyful because now you've got this whole new world, a new world that you're exploring, and it's more aligned to your values. It's more
Yeah.
aligned to the real values of dignity and respect and empathy and kindness. Right? It's not the in the past these values came from a heroic sense as me as the hero. Right? Now they come from justice and love. Right? So that's the journey. And it's messy, it's hard, and I get called out like mad
Especially
by
the
my
situation.
partner,
Yeah.
by my colleagues also
Yeah.
now, because
Good.
we built that in the culture of the organization. So I have to keep holding myself, and I fail. But this is the journey that needs to be had. This is the
Yeah.
journey, and it's definitely healing me, right?
Yeah.
Because uh, I'm shedding the identities that have given me anxiety, that have given me the mental health challenges.
Yeah. And I'm just struck how we've kind of come full circle and how you've kind of joined, the values of being a nice boy and a man to shedding those identities, and especially being thoughtful about your mental health journey. And I loved how you talked about, this can be a joyful journey at this moment because it aligns with your values, and your energy shifted when you said that. So
See, I'm
it's
healing.
You're definitely healing. I mean, you're clearly healing. Yeah, you've gone on this beautiful journey. And yeah, I just want to call out, we're just on time. So, firstly, thank you. It's so beautiful to have this well rounded conversation. I think we've gone to different places. It's been a very vulnerable conversation.